obviously, it's the 19th anniversary this past Sunday of the rampage through Granby, Colorado of the Killdozer and Marvin Heemeyer. But oftentimes we ask ourselves, I say we ask ourselves, but the mainstream media narratives, right? What makes an extremist? What causes a person to go to the extreme? For some, it doesn't take much because they're already unhinged. They're already, the type of person Marvin was talking about in these tapes, the drug addict losers who, life always beats them down, yet they can't seem to find their own humanity, their own effort, their own inspiration. They don't talk to God. If I talk to God, I don't necessarily mean praying. I don't mean talking like, in the full Christian sense. I just mean, asking the universe, am I doing the right thing? And being open to being wrong. All too often, collecting haters becomes a situation where you try to do the right thing, and a lot of other people, through jealousy, through laziness, the seven deadly sins. I did a show. I did a show several months ago where I talked about the seven deadly sins. And again, not from a Christianity standpoint, but from a philosophical standpoint about what your motivations are in life. It sounded like Marvin Heemeyer, for the most part, just wanted to be left alone. I mean, he took advantage of an easy deal, and life punished him for it. That doesn't mean he was lazy about it. In fact, I would argue you cannot call Marvin Heemeyer lazy. He's vengeful. Fuck yeah, he's vengeful. He's got a lot of wrath and pride if we're going to assign sins to Marvin Heemeyer. But he's not sloth. He's not gluttonous. He worked really hard on that Killdozer because he felt he had a mission from God. He felt the universe was trying to tell him that he ultimately had the power to decide whether these several businesses in the town of Granby, Colorado should stand or be destroyed. Just like a government panel can decide whether or not your business is zoned enough to have a sewer easement, to have water resources. Marvin Heemeyer felt he had that same power to judge another property by its usefulness. I'm not saying he's right and I'm not saying he's wrong. What I am saying is he clearly got to the end of his wit's end. And look, if that's happening to you, please seek help. Find someone to love. Find someone to love you. Find someone who will miss you, to talk you off the edge. Because, we can't all just decide, hey, I'm suicidal, so I'm going to go grab a Komatsu bulldozer. But Marvin Heemeyer did. Marvin Heemeyer was at a point where he had nothing to lose but a building and a bulldozer. And he was able to take his bulldozer and at least give himself the joy of knowing that his enemies would feel his pain. I don't advocate that kind of vengeance. It would eat you up inside. But I can respect the fact that when you reach wit's end, you feel powerless. And the ability to take some of that power back, the ability to grasp at something when your haters feel like they've already beaten you, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling knowing that you still have an ace card in the pocket. And I hope that when that bulldozer was going through the hardware store with a busted coolant line and the floor crumbling underneath the treads, and Marvin realized he would never make it back out of this building alive, and pointed the gun at himself. I hope the previous couple hours of his life were a fucking adrenaline rush. I hope the previous couple hours of his life had given him the sense of peace he didn't get from life. Because in the end, that's the quest we are all on. We are all on a quest for peace. We live our lives through, work, and for a lot of people, physical work, which takes a physical toll on our bodies. And then we try to form relationships and have emotional attachment and detachment and loss, and our loved ones pass away. Or we have struggles and hardships financially. God tests us every day. Again, I'm not saying that from a Christian or a religious perspective. I'm saying that we as human beings, just the day-to-day concept of survival, and I mean this all the way up to your richest, elite, corrupt motherfucker, your fancy Hollywood actress, everyone's got problems. Even the people who have enough money to make their problems go away. It doesn't take away the human condition of having a body, a mind, and a soul that experiences the world around them in positive and negative ways. Ultimately, Marvin Heemeyer had had enough of the human condition. Ultimately, one day, you and me will have had enough of the human condition. And our lives' stories, our successes, our failures, we may weigh them at times in our mind and feel, what's that? Was I a good boy? Or whatever, the meme. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot hard work to determine, was I a good man? And was I a successful man? Did I accomplish the good deeds I wanted to accomplish in my life? It's hard to ask yourself that when you're at wit's end. But Marvin Heemeyer did. Marvin Heemeyer didn't have someone to talk him out of the depression he was feeling, the failure he was feeling. Marvin Heemeyer had to remind himself of all the successes he had built in life, of the successful businesses he had, of some of the successful relationships he'd garnered. But ultimately, when a whole town decided they were going to hate on his success and his existence and do whatever they could to make sure he was a failure, Marvin Heemeyer let that label get to him and decided he was going to, if I'm going to be a failure, well then, you know what, I'm going to cause you to crumble too. There's a lot of that I can respect, and there's a lot of that I'm just like, yeah, that's not my style. That's not my style. But he brings up a good point. When your community, when people around you are treating you like a doormat and you don't speak up, you don't fight back, then you prove that you are a doormat. And that's exactly why I started this live stream channel, first on YouTube and then moved it to Rumble. Because for years, I've walked the walk. I ran for political office. I led nonprofit political organizations. I've been involved in trying to change hearts and minds for the better in my community, to try to educate and understand the philosophies behind the Constitution of the United States and the libertarian principles of liberty and non-aggression. And in a lot of ways, like Marvin Heemeyer, in a lot of ways I have failed. But in a lot of ways, I have learned a whole lot of lessons. And I've experienced a whole lot of things that the average viewer of my channel may not have the philosophical understanding of. So I created this channel, and I wanted to give a salute to Marvin Heemeyer, who died 19 years ago, June 4th, 2004, literally just trying to make his community a little bit better through destruction. So, moment of silence.